is now with me, Sumita Karir. Over the next 30 minutes, of course, we'll be taking a look at the top headlines and stories we're tracking this hour. But first up, an important and a very crucial interaction coming up. Well, as Paris Olympics concluded last weekend, Indian fans had mixed feelings about the country's performance at the coveted Summer Games. With a population of about 1.4 billion, India's tally of 1 silver and 5 bronze medals seems quite modest, with no golds. So the big question is, what will it take for India to reach from bronze to gold and from Paris Olympics to Los Angeles Olympics in 2028? What is India's plan to up its game? Decoding that and more is now Divyanshu Singh, COO of JSW Sports, joining us. In fact, JSW Sports, remember, has invested 300 crore rupees in operational expenses through its Paris Olympics cycle for training, exposure camps, rehab and recovery across its athletes. Divyanshu, thanks very much for joining us this evening and taking the time out. My first question to you, before we decode India's performance at the Olympics, give us a sense of the kind of investments that you've pumped in. You started off investing in this arena in 2012. You have a program also going on. Give us a sense of investments that have gone in this program over the past few years, and what is your strategy as far as the future looks like? Are you going to continue with these investments?
Investments in high-performance sport always require a long-term horizon. Good things take time. It takes 8 to 10 years to build a world-class athlete in any sport and in any disciplines. A few years back, when we started our athletics program, a lot of people doubted that will India ever have a superstar in javelin. Neeraj Chopra proved all of them wrong. So I definitely do think that when we are talking of elite sport, it always has to be a long-term horizon. Now, coming on to India's performance, I understand that I think if comparison is only made with Tokyo, which I think sometimes is very valid, and if you look at that, I think there was that sense of optimism, and a lot of people, including me, I think were hoping that India for the first time will touch double digits. But I think we also have to be cognizant in understanding the nature of high performance sport. We had 6 athletes who finished in 4th positions. I'm not trying to glorify it because I think sport is all about those hard outcomes, but those outcomes could have gone either way. That is the nature of sport. And if you would have touched 10 medals, the sentiment would have been very, very different, right? But at the same time, I think we also need to introspect and identify the clear areas of improvement, be it the disciplines where India can do much, much better, or be it looking at disciplines where India has huge potential. So that's something that we at JSW Sports have always been focused on. We are very, very strategic that the disciplines that we invest in, be it athletics, be it wrestling, be it boxing, be it judo, these are disciplines in which Indians will do well. We are also looking at disciplines and programs which are very medal intensive. We just started our swimming program last month. It has the highest number of medals up for grabs in any Olympic event. So from that perspective, we are very, very focused and determined that India's story at the Olympics keeps getting better. Another good way of measuring for us is that at the Tokyo Olympics, we had 10 of our athletes who qualified. That number jumped to 19 at this Olympics. So definitely there are a lot of positive signs, and we are looking at how is it that we can keep progressing, because excellence has to be a daily pursuit, not just once in 4 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Divyanshu, this is not to undermine the performance of our athletes who've done exceedingly well. Manu Bhaker, Vinesh Phogat, Neeraj as well. And of course, we've done rather well in hockey. But if you look at the kind of medals over the past few years as well, in fact, in the past 128 years, China has won 303 Olympic golds, but India, has not really fared well as far as that is concerned. And this has been going on since the past few years as well, past few decades. In fact, if you speak about investments, India shells about 3,400 crores, while China shells out 3 lakh crores. So there is that kind of investment push also that needs to be done. For instance, in America, if you see, there is that grassroots level structure that's relying on private investment. So the big question really is, why are more companies like yourselves, private partners like yourselves, not really putting it enough?
Thank you for framing that in the right context. Winning medals to a large extent is a function of capital being deployed and investments being made. they say that on an average, it takes an investment of $6 to $8 million to create an Olympic champion, right? And currently, our sport budget is not even 1% of the total sports budget that we have, which means that yes, I think the focus has shifted. There have been a lot of positives which have happened in the last decade, but definitely still a huge room for improvement when it comes to the kind of investment which is required towards providing structured pathways for Indian athletes. When you are mentioning of colleges, you're mentioning of pathways that exist in the US. Definitely, that structure in India is slightly fragmented, and as a result, you see that there is a big dropout rate that happens with Indian athletes. Indian athletes have been great junior athletes, but when it comes to the senior level, a sport because those career pathways are not there. Often Indians are forced to make a career choice between sport and academics, whereby a US athlete can pursue sport without having to compromise on education. So I think these are massive structural changes that we need to look at. The one thing which has become very clear and evident is that the private sector has been able to identify the role that it needs to be playing, be it providing infrastructure, be it providing sports science, be it athlete mentorship. And
Right.
it's
And
great.
we do hope, Divyanshu, that more companies like JSW Sports come up as far as pushing in investments in this arena is concerned. But very important point that you also mentioned about sporting culture. India does not really have a sporting culture. It's not really seen as a career option as well. In fact, the push is to become engineers and doctors. In fact, if I were to quote a BBC study that stated that 64% of Indian adults, they don't really engage in any sort of sport. So it is a societal change as well. But the government also needs to push this as much as possible. They do have a Fit India movement, but the push also has to come from the government side as well. And it has to be serious about pushing in that change overall over the full year and not just during Olympics.
Yeah, sporting culture has to start at the grassroots. So we need to ask ourselves that what is the culture that we have of people supporting their school and college teams, right? Another indicator of sporting culture is the level of physical activity that exists in the country. So urban India is unfortunately not ticking any of those boxes. Only 25 million people in India are active. If you talk of gym membership penetration, only about 0.13% of India actually has any health club membership, whereas the same number in Europe and USA, these are the countries which are there in the top 20. The same number there is about 15 to 20%. So definitely, I think as we are rising as an economy, you'll see that all these indicators and parameters will change. But definitely a big push is required towards promoting and developing that sporting culture. Initiatives like Khelo India are a step in that right direction where school and college athletes are being promoted. But overall, we need to ensure and actually the way that I will look at it is that I think sometimes it is good to get these shocks, right? That people start realizing more and more people are talking about it. Otherwise, normally we have historically seen that the chatter or the conversation around Olympics only happens once in 4 to 5 years. So it should get all of us moving and understanding that what's the role that each and every one can play, from the government to the private sector and the common citizen as well, who I believe
Absolutely,
plays.
Divyanshu. But the other point is also about the fact that many players who are coming into the ecosystem, they're not really privileged. In fact, I can just think of Abhinav Bindra as somebody who's privileged enough. And hence, it is important to also incentivize players who are not, from very strong backgrounds, who's not as privileged. It is important to incentivize them as well.
Very important, very important, because an athlete needs support not once they won an Olympic medal, right? That's when all the fame, all the recognition, and all the wealth comes. Athletes actually need support in their formative years, and I think that's where the likes of JSW, OGQ, Go Sport Foundation, Reliance. I think we all are kind of coming together and have identified that gap and are playing that important role in giving support to these athletes.
Also, Divyanshu, help us understand how governance can be improved. We've seen the kind of criticism that came in for during the Vinesh Fogart episode. Do give us a sense of how that can be improved. In fact, if I were to quote Odisha is adopting hockey, and that's something perhaps that other states could also adopt in terms of ownership.
Yeah, so sport is a state subject in India, while a lot of the funding to the national organizing federations comes from the central government, and then you can see that there is a lot of accountability that happens in terms of athletes where more disciplines in which more athletes are qualifying or disciplines in which India has a good chance of winning medals are the ones that get greater funding. Uh, whereby when it comes to the performance of states, you'll notice that there are certain states which are definitely leading the leaderboard. Coming on to governance, yes, it's something which is very, very important. It is something which is the hallmark of any sporting nation. And I'm a little cautious with my words here because I want to be politically correct. But definitely, I think there's a need for the athlete, the right administrations coming into power, and try and ensure that the athlete is at the center of every decision, which if once that is into place, then all other things fall as well.
Right. Right. In fact, one final question, Mr. Singh, before we let you go. In fact, we also heard from Prakash Padukone. He said that athletes also need to step up, at least those who have everything at their disposal, and they have really not done enough. So pressure really needs to build up on athletes as well, at least the elite ones, to do well. In fact, Abhinav Bindra also told Indian Express recently that you'd need money to compete for training, but for the overall performance, it's not really like a vending machine. You can spend more, you can spend less, but it's not really a guarantee. Spending money is not really a guarantee for success. So I think there needs to be some push that needs to go to these elite players as well.
Yeah, so I think as an athlete, to the capacity that I could be, I feel for any successful sporting ecosystem, the responsibility has to be shared. The athlete has to feel as responsible as the coaches and as the support staff has to feel. So I think Prakash's comment was coming on that sentiment that yes, the athlete is equally responsible. That doesn't mean that the athlete was being careless, right? I think each and every athlete, the six athletes who finished in the fourth position, no one can point a finger that they did not try hard enough, right? That is the nature of elite sport, that the smallest of things make the biggest of margins when it comes to a podium finish. So responsibility, I think a good takeaway, and to not blow that comment out of proportion, is that everyone in the ecosystem has to take that responsibility, and the athlete takes that responsibility equally. And this is my interaction with all the contingent and the athletes. I think our athletes are responsible. And it just means that as a sporting nation, we need to accelerate a lot more. We need to get our strategy right, be it broad basing, be it focusing that 117 athletes qualified across 16 disciplines, which are the disciplines on which we need to go deeper. I think we can do a lot better. We can win more medals in shooting. We can win more medals in archery. We can do a lot better in boxing, where we came very close with a Nishan Dev, and we could not. We have potential to do a lot better in wrestling, and also understanding the disciplines, be it the positive performances that we saw in rowing. So I think definitely a strategy which looks at both the perspective, going wider and also going in depth, should be the way forward.
Going wider and going deeper, and of course we have a lot to improve upon as far as these disciplines are concerned. Wrestling, you said, is one area where India certainly can do better. On that note, thank you very much, Divyanshu, for joining us with your insights and your perspectives on how India can really fare better, can do better as far as LA Olympics are concerned. Meanwhile, viewers, it's now time to shift